It is that time of year again. Gen Con is just about here, and we
Yes.
have our most anticipated list. We're going to talk about 10 plus
Some
more.
honorable mentions.
We
we'll
were
call
talking before as we were sort of compiling this list. This is an interesting year. Gen Con, at least compared to back in the old days, there used to be like maybe those 3 games.
Oh
that
yeah, well sometimes even just the
everyone
one.
was wanting. I think, yeah, right. And I think there's so many games these days, it's hard for any handful of games to stand out as the must-haves. But I'm sure some of you who are going to be going will be looking at some of the ones on our list here and thinking, oh yeah, that's the one I want to get. Not too interested in that one. But there's a lot of games.
So keep in mind that we are about 3 weeks away from Gen Con, so who knows what last minute announcements we're going to have. We might come back with more content. And I wouldn't put it past publishers to have some surprise games at Gen. And I'm not hinting with any kind of knowledge. I just know that this is a thing that always seems to happen. There's that pop-up game that just releases out of nowhere. So hopefully
Are you talking
that
about
happens.
Death Haven, the follow-up to Frosthaven?
No, don't even.
I'm kidding. We
Don't.
don't know anything about
Everybody's on
anything.
BGG right now.
What is Death Haven?
That's a cool name, though.
I mean,
I think you're owed 10% now if that's what they do.
Isaac, if you go with Death Haven, I'll give you my address for the money. No, but we're going to talk about 10 games, a little bit, just very briefly, that are sort of what we think are our most anticipated games of the show.
Yeah, and I'll start because this is something I'm very excited about. It's near and dear to my heart, and this is HeroScape. It's back. Renegade is bringing back HeroScape. If you're not familiar at all, this was a super cool battle system. It was for, like Warhammer-style miniatures for people that didn't want to do the whole Warhammer thing, like me.
For the Toy Story.
For the Toy Story. I think I
scene.
got mine at Toys R Us.
I was there. I played it a little bit, but this is something I collected, and it was one of those things where I was like, oh, this is so cool.
It is.
And I just I wanted to buy it all. Plus, they had back in the day, blister packs
Which
that you could buy for extra stuff.
They're really they're leaning into what HeroScape used to be. There's I think 2 sets that are going to be available. There's the
Age
core
of
set,
Annihilation.
Age of Annihilation core set, and the Battle for Wellspring, which are 2 boxes. And then of course they're going to have terrain packs and 3D terrain and tiles and all this stuff that you love.
And apparently it's all compatible with all existing HeroScape.
It is. They say anything you have from the old stuff can be used with the new stuff. But of course, this is all new. This is not a reprint. This is new monsters, new heroes, new everything.
This might actually get me to pull out the massive bins. I have plastic tubs filled with HeroScape stuff that I had collected, like I said. Some of the boxes hadn't been opened.
Yeah.
I did sell a couple of those boxes once upon a time because they were going for a pretty penny.
I mean, I'm sure they probably.
But if you're a fan, you'll be excited. If you're not, if you have never played it, maybe this is your onboarding to the game.
I'm all for that merger of toy and game.
Oh yeah, I mean it's just fun to see that, and we're gonna see a few more of those on this list, maybe at Gen Con as well. The one I want to talk about is far from a toy as a game. This is a meaty Euro from Board and Dice. It is the Reef Project. There's some content floating out there on the interwebs about it, so you can dig into it a little bit more. John Gets Games has a playthrough tutorial, so do check that out. But as you could expect, this is I would say medium to heavy. Probably not the heaviest.
It's not the heaviest, but it's heavier than some.
It's not nucleum heavy.
It's not. That's true.
It's not nucleum heavy.
It's not nucleum heavy.
But what I will say, so thematically, you're trying to encourage the growth of the reef. You are going around with these boats from island to island. There's a little bit of network building because you can put down these, I forget what they call them, these little buoy type things that produce growth of reef on some networks that make it free for you to move there. So you're going to be moving all across to these different islands, completing sort of missions on those islands, hiring people for your boat to do all sorts of various things. There's honestly, in John's video I watched, there's just so many and there's this, and there's this, and there's this track, and there's these guys who relate to the track. There's a lot of things going on, but it's beautiful. It's also probably one of the most colorful Board and Dice games.
Windmill Valley was pretty colorful.
That's true. So, maybe they're trending upward from beige to color.
Hey, Barcelona too.
I know, Barcelona.
This is the year of colors.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. But the one I want to talk about, the next one, it's called Loot from Gigamic with 3 O's.
3 O's.
This is a super unique looking game. It's hard to describe. And I don't want to call it network building or anything like that. It's an abstract strategy game where you're these Vikings, But you're trying to do a number of things, collecting resources or controlling these different areas. There's like castles and houses and things. But you're placing these Vikings out, and you're doing it by putting them on this modular board that's made up of hexes. And you can mix and match this board, and there's a shoreline. And you're bringing your longships in, and you're placing Vikings out, but you're placing them next to other Vikings in a very specific pattern, because with every Viking you place, you're either taking some resources, which you need to bring back to your longships to score them, or you're placing them in specific ways to score these buildings. And each building has a specific thing that it needs. It needs to have something next to it, or multiple things next to it, or a connection from one thing to another thing that lets you score it. So while you're doing this, you're trying to build the best possible, and I really don't want to say route, pattern, whatever you want to call it. But of course, everybody else is placing their Vikings on the same board, trying to score the same things that you're doing. So it really does become a brain burnery puzzle of where you're putting these Vikings out. It almost gives me like Blue Lagoon vibes.
It does, yeah, exactly. It looks like one of those sort of thinky, abstracty type games that I think there's not enough of. These are the kind of games that I always loved finding at Gen Con, like from a Blue Orange or someone like that.
This feels like it would be a Blue Orange game.
Kind of. But yeah, in this one, we're going to get our hands on a lot of these, by the way, before Gen Con. Yeah. This one in particular, I can tell you we're not going to have our hands on it. But I am told they are trying to deliver it directly to Gen Con. This might be one of those things where like you get there day one and they're like, they haven't shown up yet. I don't know. But a lot of publishers at Gen Con, if you've ever been, they are all scrambling to try to air freight in
everything that was late trying to get
it sold. But yeah, hopefully this one's there because it does look really good.
Another really colorful looking game.
And if you want to try it right now, you can actually go over to BGA because it's a pretty popular game on BGA these days. The next one I want to talk about, I have here for one main reason. Well, one, I heard about it, sounds cool. Two, Emily's not here, and we want to represent Emily.
That's true.
This is a deduction game. It's a cooperative deduction game called AI Space Puzzle. This is from Portal Games. It's a little box game. They took it, I don't know if it came out overseas, but Portal picked it up, and they've done a little tweaking and redesign, making it look a little bit different. But it's a cooperative deduction game where there's one person trying to communicate. It's also limited to communication. So you're using these tokens, that person, to communicate to all the other players at the table. I think it's a 2 to 4 player game, maybe more even. Trying to navigate this little sort of space station-y sort of thing. But the puzzle being where you're like, I hope you know what this means. It's one of those games where you're like putting something forward that can give a little bit of information, but maybe not very clear and detailed information. Sure. And every other player's sitting there trying to think, okay, what do they mean? And there's obviously discussion going on at the table. I've played some other games like this recently, or at least in that vein that trigger that same sort of thing. Landmarks being one of them from Floodgate. Yeah. It's a word game that kind of uses the same sort of concept in terms of do you know what I mean by this? But yeah, that's going to be there, and it's not the only deduction game that's going to be there.
Yeah, that's right. I'm really excited about this next deduction game. This is the Search for UAPs. This is a sequel to the Search for Lost Planet.
And Lost Species.
Well, this is more like Lost Planet.
Yeah, that's true.
Lost Species took that mechanic and went in a different direction. This is bringing it back. This actually kind of started off as a mod or expansion for that Search for Lost Planet by
Ted Alspach.
Or Search for Planet X.
Yeah.
Search for Lost Species, Search for Planet X, from Ted Alspach from Bezier Games, which is quite...
Yeah, he's the one who's designing this
apparently
one. He did not design the original one, but he loved it enough.
He didn't. And I've talked to the designers of the original one who are super on board with him bringing his touch to this game. So it does take that same, if you looked at it, you might think it was Search for Planet X. It's got that same circular board with the different areas of the sky. You're looking for different things now. You're looking for UAPs, which is unidentified, and I don't know. Something phenomenon. Whatever the A stands for.
Aerial.
No, it's not aerial. It's anthropomorphous or something. It's weird.
It's definitely not anthropomorphous.
It's a weird. Anyway, you're searching for those. You're searching
it's right
for
here at the
meteor
bottom
showers.
of the screen, by the way.
There's a variety of things you're looking for using similar mechanics, but with twists. There's some sky elements that it's cloudy today, so you can see less, or it's a clear sky, you can see more. But it feels like more for those of us who loved these games. We're happy to have more of it, and I'm excited to see his take on Search for Planet X.
The next one is not a deduction game, and pardon the name, it's called Rock Hard. 1977, and it's about rocking out like a rock star. It's a like 1970s rock band.
Height of like the big rock band wave.
And we don't know much about this. We do have a copy of this coming. I don't know if it's going to come here before Gen Con. If it does, we will have a preview. We're going to be trying to do previews for a lot of these things. What I can tell you, because I did see it at Gamma earlier this year, like kind of all splayed out, it is some of the coolest components. It's also DeVere, so you know it's a certain bar of quality with DeVere. But the components are amazing, and the component that stood out the most to me, some people would say, oh, you're going to say the player boards, because the player boards all look like these amplifier, speaker type things.
Them go to 11?
With the dials. I don't know if they go to 11. But you move the dials for all the different resources you're collecting and stuff like that. But you are living out the life of a rock star. The coolest component is the money. The money looks legit like real money that have been scribbled, it has like symbols
like
and stuff
drawings.
drawn. And when I saw this, I was like, can you even do that? Can you make something that looks like real money?
You got to print like the fine print.
I did find out there are some very specific rules to navigate when you're doing that sort of thing.
That's funny.
That can make it like, okay, you've crossed the line of sort of parody, and it's not counterfeit.
That is pretty cool. That
But
looks
it's
like
really
a lot
cool.
of fun.
Also designed by a former member of the Runaways. I think the bass player Jackie Fox.
That's pretty cool too.
And from what I hear, I don't know if I'm spilling the beans. Maybe at Gen Con.
Really?
She may be at Gen Con. If you don't know the Runaways, come on.
I didn't really.
You're probably not trying this game. You should try this game.
I still want to try the game though.
Turn on some music. By the way, if you ever put music on behind games, which I don't generally endorse, I might with this.
Yeah, this is
I
one
might
for
with
it.
this.
All right, so moving on to the next one for me. This is Barcelona expansion. It's Passage de Gracia. I think
Whoa, that was pretty solid.
I don't know if that was close.
He did look it up beforehand.
I did.
But
I wanted to
still.
make sure I tried. Anyway, this
Passage of Grace is what it means,
This is an
right?
expansion. Again, one of the things I loved most about Barcelona was the attention to detail and to the history of Barcelona. This is no exception. This was a famous avenue that kind of grew over time between Barcelona and Gracia, which was the neighboring, at the time, like a suburb. Now it's just all kind of like overgrown, but that street still exists. And it's like Rodeo Drive over there. Like this is like
I did not know that.
This is like where the shops are and the restaurants and the food, and like people just walk up and down it, and that is what's happening. My favorite thing about this expansion is it replaces the actions from the base game that sucked the most. Now, if it remembers, they were all good actions, but there were some actions in Barcelona that's just like, go here and get a coin. Like, go here and get a silk. And it's like, okay. But they've replaced those now with new actions that actually interact with this avenue. And there are dice moving along this avenue that represent people. And you're kind of trying to like get them to move. You're trying to get them to stop at different spots to spend money and get points that way. And then ultimately, you're trying to get them to the end of the avenue, to the city, to score massive points. It gives you new ways to score, new tiles for all the different areas of the game that reflect the avenue, and new places to put your little like hexagon stop, your little intersection tiles can go on the new board. So it does look like it offers a lot, and I feel like by replacing those actions that always kind of felt like, you just took them, but now they're doing something, right? I think this is going to end up being one of those expansions that you don't want to play without.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're a big fan of Barcelona.
I'm still a huge Barcelona fan.
We're definitely going to have this on the channel. This one, I don't think we're going to get before the show.
Probably get it at the show.
I do know that Board and Dice is trying to have that and Reef Project at the show, and I think they might be more likely to have Reef Project. I'm not sure, but
I don't know. They're saying it's going to be for sale, but
again, publishers are trying to scramble.
Who knows?
The next one I want to talk about is Metro Runner. Why do I have the rule book? Well, I'm still reading it. Metro Runner is from Thunderworks, and I have to say, Thunderworks does such a wide variety. This is definitely not set in the Ulos universe.
We joked about that. This and Cape May. Most of their games are set in Ulos.
Maybe this is futuristic Cape May.
We're tying it all together.
I kid. No, this is a very sort of cyberpunky,
super cyberpunky,
set world. It's a game where you're doing a lot of different things. As far as I've gotten in here, there's a rondel that you're basically moving around. You can move like 1 or 2 spaces for free, but like most rondels, you can spend some resource to move further. There's all these different little actions you can take, and some of them feel like you're going to be completing missions. You're going to do all the things you would expect from a game called Metro Runner. But one of the things, hacking, as you might guess, is kind of a cool action that you take in the middle of the board. There's these tiles that are randomly put out there that kind of like a network of like lines. and you are hacking that by there's a card that has like certain things you need to do, and you're moving those tiles around, like probably in the slide puzzle
it's pretty
fashion,
cool.
to like effectively achieve some of those cards during that action to get some things, which is cool. It seems like it's dripping in theme. We just got a hold of it, so we will probably try to get a more thorough preview up where we actually know a little bit more about the game. So stay tuned for that, but I wanted to talk about it.
All right, my last one I think is going to be one of the biggest and best-selling games of all Gen Con.
I do think so.
This is Gaia Project: The Lost Fleet from Capstone. This is the long-awaited game. In fact, when we showcased this on our channel, a lot of people were hearing it for the first time.
Yeah, a lot of people reacted to that going, I had no idea this was
Right,
coming.
I had no idea this was coming, and wow, finally, was the response a lot of people had. This game is fairly old, like 2016, 17.
2017 is when it
Gaia
released.
Project came out, so it's been a few years.
7 years ago.
7 years ago, this game, and it's even changed publisher hands since then. So Capstone has done this expansion, which brings in these Lost Fleets to Gaia Project. Watch our video that we did where we kind of break down what's new. But the concept of these Lost Fleets is very cool. It does, of course, it comes with new factions, new tiles, new everything. So you can kind of add those in.
New planets.
New planets.
Adds
There's
new
asteroids, protoplanets. But the Lost Fleet is kind of core. And there are these Lost Fleet tokens that go out on the board that represent almost locations you can visit. And if you visit them, you get new actions, new scoring tiles, new Federation tiles, new technologies, like a ton of stuff that you get from exploring these very specific fleets, which appeals to me. I think that's going to add a lot. We haven't gotten a chance to fully play the game with the expansion yet because I want to do it with like 4 players.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to that.
Lost Fleet is going to be, I don't know how many they're going to bring with them.
They'll
I know
probably sell out.
If they have a lot of them, we'll see. But if I had to put my money on what I think is going to sell out for sure, 100%, there's plenty of Gaia Project fans out there.
Sure, lots of them.
If they're at Gen Con, they're buying this.
Yeah.
You're not buying this if you're a Gaia Project fan. The last one I want to talk about is River of Gold. We saw this not last year.
No, I think it was last year. Was it
last?
It was maybe
it was last year or 2 years ago. I can't remember. At an Asmodee event that we went to, they had this. This is from Office Dog, which is a new publisher sort of within the Asmodee umbrella. Yeah. And they have actually 2 games coming out this year. This is one of them. It is a Euro. We know a little bit about this. Yeah. We didn't get a demo of it last year, but it's beautiful. It has like embossed stuff and like gold leaf, and it's really one of the most beautifully produced boards and stuff that you've ever seen. But in terms of gameplay, this sounds to me like it's a medium minus.
It's a
sort of weight
long Euro
60.
game.
It says 60 minutes to play. You're effectively moving your boats down this river through the course of the game. I don't think it like recycles or anything like that. You move down this, and as you're moving, you're triggering different things. That part, and I don't want to compare it to like a Tokaido, but that part felt reminiscent of Tokaido.
You're taking stops, and each stop does something.
But there's a lot more that brings it in more to the medium weight range. What was the other game you mentioned? Osiris?
Oh, Journey to Osiris, or Sailing to Osiris, where you're sailing down the river. That kind of feeling of like you're going a little. If you want to like stop at every stop, and we haven't watched the gameplay video. I feel like you probably do move down the river more than once.
Oh, you do?
I'm just getting that vibe.
Maybe,
but it might just be one trip. I don't know. There's a gameplay video up there from Becca Scott. So if you want to watch that and learn more about it.
Or how to play anyway.
Well, yeah, it's a full how to play, and it was pretty long, so I didn't watch the whole thing. But I will probably watch it before I actually sit down to play the game.
Yeah, and hopefully we've asked for a copy. I don't know if they've even got that email yet because I really literally just sent it. But hopefully we'll get a copy of this. If we don't, we'll be picking one up at Gen Con.
Sure.
We've got a few more that we just wanted to mention. Those were the 10, but we couldn't narrow down the list completely, so we had a few more. The first one I wanted to mention is Crossbows and Catapults. Yeah. This was crowdfunded, so I think it's actually maybe delivering right now. Yeah. I've heard people talking about playing it, I think. But it's definitely, from what I'm told, going to be for sale at Gen Con and talk about toys and games.
That's definitely a toy.
This is maybe the toy mixed with a game of all time.
Yeah, we filmed a short actually that's still being watched.
It was a blast.
And Catapults of David versus Emily last year at Origins.
I can't wait.
Almost a whole year ago.
I cannot wait to set it on this table. Hopefully we'll get a copy of this. We'll try to get up a little preview before Gen Con. Next one I want to mention is Panda Panda. This one is from the designer of Nana. Now, we haven't talked about Nana on the channel too much.
It swept board games by storm.
But we love Nana. Well, a lot of people have known Nana for years. It's a memory game. If you run into me at Gen Con, ask me, and I'll have it in my pocket, and we'll play it.
And it came out as Trio here in the U.S.
Yes,
so
it did come out as Trio. So if you're
bought
looking
Trio,
for it,
it's the same game.
if you're looking for it, look for Trio. It's hard to get Nana unless you go to eBay. All that aside, this is from the designer of Nana. It's called Panda Panda here. This is from 25th Century Games. And over there, I think it was originally called Cat Poker. And I've read just the brief description on BGG. That's all I know of this. This sounds like a really fast-paced, chaotic game where you're trying to build a hand in your hand, and as soon as you have it, you'll be able to score. Everyone's trying to do that same thing. And there are cards you're going to discard that force everyone to give a card to the right or something like that, or left. So hands are going to be changing. You're going to be drawing cards. You're going to be getting cards from other people. So you're going to want to pay attention to, like, what do they have?
Yeah.
I don't want to give them this. It might make them the hand. Okay, two more. Pirates of Maracaibo.
So this one, it didn't quite make our list only because it has actually been out for some time.
I think
it's been
last year,
available
right?
Essen last year, and a lot of people have already got it. We already got it. I've already been able to play it. But still, for a lot of people, I think Gen Con will be the first chance to get their hands on this. This is not an expansion to Maracaibo. This is a completely new standalone game based on Maracaibo. So yes, a lot of the same principles, a lot of the same DNA. If you know Maracaibo well, then it makes learning this game super easy. I think our teach was like 10 minutes because it was just like, here's some of the differences. And it feels like a streamlined, faster Maracaibo. It plays in like an hour and a half instead of like 3 hours. So definitely a grab if you're a fan of Maracaibo.
And be sure to stay tuned to the channel because we are going to definitely have content on that.
Yeah.
Probably even a gameplay of it just so that we can clearly communicate to people. This is not an expansion to Maracaibo. See, we're playing a different game.
And I like they make it like it's a standalone game. It says it right on the front and the back, just in case you missed it.
Yeah, standalone game, dummy. All right, the last one we want to talk about. We also want to talk about Too Much because, quite frankly, we're not allowed to until after its release at Gen Con. But I did want to just show you really quick. That's all I can do before I get my head shot off or cut off by a lightsaber. Mandalorian Adventures. We talked about this on the channel when the news broke on it with what little details we had, and we theorized about the rest. I did open this up last night and we'll take a quick look at the rule book. What I can tell you, based on what we originally knew, it is a campaign game where you're moving around. There's card play, moving people around sort of a tactical map, attacking the bad guys, basically
the bad guys.
Trying to achieve some missions and things like that. We are definitely going to get some of this played and get a preview of some kind up so that we can hit that as soon as the game is available.
And they want people to be surprised by the content at Gen Con, so we're not. I don't think our video will come out until after everyone has it.
This feels like this is a good old-fashioned big Gen Con release. So yeah, those aren't all the games, but those are all the games we have time to talk about today. We've already spent so much of your time. But thank you for watching. If you have any questions about any of the games here, make them in the comments below. We'll get down there and answer whatever we can. If there's games you thought, like, how on earth did you guys not have that game on your list?
There's like 400 brand new games releasing.
But please let us know that too, and we'll quickly ignore that comment. But until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.